Antinatalism is the philosophy that it is unethical to put children into this world. Today we're going to have a look at some of the arguments and in particularly look at how genetic subjective continuity and environmentalism affect these. Let's start with the common argument that there is more suffering than well-being in this world. Now, it's easy to point your finger to burning villages, crying children, and various crimes and conclude that life is just shit. And a couple of months ago, I would have immediately signed that. But now I tend to think that my insight into this issue is just far too limited to give a proper answer. We could just as well point our finger towards the good things in life and conclude that life is great. My point is that I am not in a situation to evaluate such a thing. But what is even more important is that it doesn't actually matter. And to demonstrate why, I invite you to come with me on a thought experiment. Imagine there were only 10 conscious minds in the entire universe, and each one of them had 60% suffering and 40% well-being in their life. And at a later point in time, another 10 beings come into existence who also have 60% suffering and 40% well-being. So now we've got 20 beings that all have 60% suffering, 40% well-being. Has the situation worsened? The answer might seem simple. Of course it has worsened for the second set of 10 people who were previously not suffering. But think about this for a moment. What has the situation actually worsened from? If you say that it has worsened from the state of non-existence that these 10 people were previously in, you're now making the mistake of imagining nothingness as somethingness, as a state that you can be in, as if a second set of 10 people were previously living in some kind of a black void where they had the active sensation of not suffering. But this is not the case. They quite simply didn't exist. In order for something to get worse, you need two reference points. Otherwise, it's just a nonsensical statement. You see, consciousness always finds itself present. We might still conclude that the situation is bad, okay, but if we have nothing to compare that to, if we have no reference points, then that just isn't really any kind of meaningful information. It doesn't tell us how we ought to live our lives. So life being intrinsically bad wouldn't in by itself be an argument for antinatalism. What would be an argument for antinatalism, however, would be if putting another being into existence would actively worsen the situation for those already in existence. And this is where environmentalism comes into the game. You see, if you haven't been living under a rock, you will be well aware that we are currently undergoing a climate crisis. The temperature of the Earth is going up, and that's causing all sorts of suffering. Now, there are a number of things we can do. We can go vegan, we can travel less by plane, and so on. But the single biggest thing we can do to tackle the climate crisis is to not have any children. Because anything we can directly do to harm the planet, our children will do as well. So not having children is just going to save an entire lifetime's amount of emissions, which would be great. Now, some people might say that they desire having children so much that it would justify an entire lifetime's amount of emissions. Okay, but the thing here is that there's also the option of adopting a child. Sure, it might have been unethical for the biological parents of that child to have that child, but that wasn't your responsibility. And that is a mistake that has already been made. That can't be overturned, right? Like, I mean, I'm not in favor of killing children or anything. And this just raises a question for me of what actually is the justification of having children in this day and age? And I understand that this might have been different in the past, and it might well be different in the future again. But I'm talking about right now. What would be your justification for having children right now? I can't really think of a good one. Anyway, that was it for today. I know it's a very controversial topic, but those are my thoughts. I just wanted to put them out there. If you disagree, do let me know in the comments why. If you agree, that's great as well. Do let me know about that as well. And I hope to see you soon. So life just being intrinsically bad wouldn't in itself be an argument for environmentalism. What would be an argument for environmentalism? Oh, shut the f